Commercial radio and television stations in Colorado are awash in campaign attack ads, a majority of them paid for by groups outside of Colorado. And in the world of campaign finance nowadays, it's hard to tell who is behind some of the ads or even what their end game is. As iNews' Katie Kuntz and Joe Mahoney report, negative campaigning is nothing new, but money is taking it to new heights in the 2014 campaign cycle.
Mudslinging negative attack ads are one electioneering tactic as old as the Republic. But what's changed now is the money behind these ads increasingly comes from outside or independent sources and not the candidates themselves. Political analyst Floyd Cerulli explains the evolution.
In recent years, we have created an entire field of independent expenditures. That's what we're looking at here today. As a matter of fact, I suspect when this election is over with, there will be more independent expenditures than candidate expenditures.
Independent expenditures come from social welfare nonprofits or political action committees, usually called PACs. These are not allowed to work with the candidate.
The money would turn off here in a minute if it looked like either the Democrats or the Republicans were consistently ahead by 5 points, 6 points, 7 points. You would see the money just disappear. But because you don't, because these races look like they're just barely within the margin of error, and because the control of the United States Senate is in play here, it could shift. I suspect we're going to see a lot of money right now through November 4th.
Before 1976, voters might have seen ads a little like this. Then the Supreme Court struck down the limits an individual can spend on things like TV ads, radio ads, newspaper ads, or whatever else, providing the first step to the flood of independent spending we now see on ads like this.
There's a smear campaign going on in Colorado. Backed by the out-of-state oil billionaire Koch, Gardner voted to keep giving billions in special...
What's happening to your healthcare? Not what we were promised. The Affordable Care Act has become notice. What did Mark Udall do? He tried to...
Then, in 2010, the court said the same goes for corporations and unions, too. Spend any unlimited amount of money on political speech, so long as it's independent from a specific candidate. That's how states like Colorado see millions of dollars in campaign ads, but don't always know where the money is coming from or what those groups really want. And without a constitutional amendment, we're not going back to those good old days.
For president, you like Ike, I like...
Katie Kuntz joins me now. We are talking millions and millions of dollars at this point.
Absolutely. So what we found is in Denver alone, as of last week, and of course money's coming in every day, really, there was already over about $30 million spent in television ads. And it was from outside groups. We're spending almost 3 to 1 against the candidates themselves. So we mentioned in the video there was about $20.8 million coming in from independent groups just to 4 stations in Denver.
And independent groups are the ones who are running attack ads. That none of them is the kind of yummy gummy, let's all celebrate this candidate we like.
Well, that's exactly right. And so one of the reasons why that happens is because they're supposed to be independent from any candidate. So you're not supposed to sit there and say, we are supporters of this candidate. That could be considered bribery. That's sort of what the Supreme Court has told us. So they run attack ads to kind of get around that. So you think about, saying no to Cory Gardner because of abortion, or no to Mark Udall because he's too close to the president. And that's what we've really been seeing right now.
And they, instead of saying, so vote for the other guy, they essentially say, call the one we don't like and complain.
Exactly. So that's sort of the idea. And that's why there's been this, kind of public outrage after court decisions like the Citizens United decision, which said that corporations and unions get to spend all of their large amounts of money. We focus this time not really on the corporations and unions, but on the individual billionaires who have been able to spend lots and lots of money, funneling them through nonprofits, so we can't necessarily detect who they are. Nonprofit organizations don't disclose their donors. And then, of course, PACs, super PACs, so these political action committees, they do disclose their donors, but it's still very complex, and there's lots of ways to kind of hide who you are. So that was one of the major plays we talked about in the study.
And what you found is that some of these people, by moving the money the way they do or spending it the way they do are not even attacking, or I shouldn't use the word attacking, but they're not even addressing in their ads what they mostly care about. This is misdirection, essentially.
It's a misdirection, yeah. We've seen, like I mentioned a moment ago, a lot of discussion about so-called women's issues or reproductive rights. And that's been coming from both sides. We've heard some ads attacking Mark Udall that he's too permissive with abortion. And of course, we've heard lots attacking Senator Cory Gardner, or Representative Cory Gardner, Senate candidate Gardner, against his position, his historic position on birth control, contraceptives, and of course
on
abortion.
the personhood amendment in the past.
And on the personhood amendment in the past. And so those things are not energy issues, even though lots of times energy backers will produce those ads.
And that is because they think Cory Gardner is vulnerable on that issue, and so if they want to defeat him, they should go with that issue?
I think that really what it comes down to is the fact that Colorado is a swing state, and what that means is that there's a huge chunk that knows their Republican is going to be Republican, and there's an equally large chunk that's Democrat and knows they're going to be Democrat, but there's this little group of people that could go either way. And that group of people
is who these are all aimed at.
And it looks like women.
Mostly women.
Mostly women right now. And that's a big thing. And so they're trying to catch the attention of women and say, well, you have to vote one way or the other. Obviously, please vote for us or vote against them. And so.
And as Floyd Cerulli made the point in your video, it is because everything's so close in this state. If it were clear that Gardner or Udall, one or the other, were 10 points ahead, we probably would not be seeing this much advertising.
I think that's absolutely the case. And we have also an equally close governor's race. So we're seeing some money into that. Certainly the federal race is a much bigger spender, which is why we focused on that again in this study.
Why did you start looking at the expenditures of the independent groups?
So what we found is that this year, especially with other groups, there's been a lot of groups sort of researching this problem. Maybe not a problem, but certainly the spending, it's grown exponentially, and this year has already broken previous year's records, even though it is a midterm election, not even a presidential election. So we're finding that independent groups, especially nonprofits, have been spending more than really ever before. And we decided to look at that, to really take a closer look at some of the plays they're doing and the power plays they're doing, because they're sort of an integral part of our elections anymore. We can look, of course, at candidates, and we can look at the different branches of government, but this group is almost like a fourth branch in the power that they have over our election cycle, the influence they have on voters. We've seen that these ads are some of the most influential tools that you can use to convince a voter to do something. Floyd Cerulli, our political analyst, told me at one point that they've seen polls change within hours after releasing an advertisement.
Is that right?
They are so effective in some cases that they have seen public opinion actually change within hours. And so we had to look at these influential people. They have the capability to lobby our Congress, and obviously they have the power to get voters to the polls.
It really is a fascinating topic, and there's much more to Katie's report. You can see it on our website at rmpbs.org.